It would help if I was on the watch together as well.
You're not on the watch together? I got 3 people here. What's going on? That don't make no sense, Shiny.
Might be Glib's coming in soon.
Oh, Glib's just popping in. He's just there.
Why George Lucas is not a bad director. By a video essay by Dolphin Republic. Okay.
Yeah, Dolphin Republic is a very small channel, and this is a very big video that blew up on him, so I don't know if he's just doing this once every blue moon and making a video and doing really well, or this is like he has an active YouTube channel. He does it all the time. I'm not sure. I'm going to check out his channel later, though. All right, we are live, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Smudcast number 108, Why George Lucas is Not a Bad Director of Visual Essay. And this is a video by Dolphin Republic. This is a small channel, less than 2,000 subs, but this video itself has over 620,000 views, so I'm assuming it's going to be great. And, well, it's a good departure from what we usually cover, and I thought it would be interesting to look at. George is not always seen in a good light in some cases, but that's how it goes. So we want to see what that's about, and hopefully he'll talk about more than just Star Wars, because we always cover Star Wars every other day whenever we do a Smudcast. So let's get going, okay, folks?
Sure.
Ooh.
Quite a while ago, I was browsing the internet, and this was right after the release of Star Wars The Force Awakens, and so there were Star Wars related articles, pictures, and videos all over the place. One of the clips that caught my eye showed the opera scene in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. See if you can tell what this video is pointing out.
He taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep.
Ah, man. Just by watching that clip, we should all agree that Star Wars is completely ruined by the sloppy visual effects and poor editing choices made by the editors, right? Wait, what do you mean you have no idea what I'm talking about? Didn't you see Hayden Christensen's face morph halfway through one of the shots? Watch his head closely, right here. His head changes from one version to another with a little bit of a shape morph. Now, it's possible that even now that I've pointed out, there are still some of you that don't see what I'm talking about. And if you want to...
Shiny, what exactly is he talking about?
I think he's taking the piss.
Yeah?
And the reason why... Okay. So there are certain people I have seen when it comes to people who have reacted to the prequels that break apart visual effects. They pick out a tiny, tiny detail and they say, oh, look, this proves that it's computer generated. Look, it's a glitch. Even though you can easily go to the actual behind the scenes production and realize that that's not a CGI effect. That's not a glitch. It's literally just your eyes playing tricks on you because you believe you... When you're looking for something, and especially when it's something really small, your eyes can easily deceive you. Not intentionally quoting Star Wars.
Yeah, because
I've seen certain people... I think he's taking the piss out of this. Well, I believe so anyway, but I have seen similar arguments where people say, hey, did you look here? Here's a tiny problem. And this often comes from people who have no understanding of things like After Effects or even Maya. Now, I don't know if they were actually using Maya or After Effects, probably not. But my point more is that they don't really have an understanding of the software itself, but yet they like to make comments about visual effects when they don't understand it.
Because I couldn't even tell what he was talking about. I knew what he was pointing at, and I was like, okay, but I didn't see anything specifically special or different. Or, there's no shadow that oh, it's a trick. It's an eye trick. It's like, no, he's just nodding his head a bit. That's it.
I wouldn't believe that they would go through all the effort just to merge two takes together because of whatever reason. Because what could there be that was possibly so bad in the take that they didn't pick it up when filming? And how hard would it be just to use another take? Or, why wouldn't they just use multiple takes or even a reshoot at that point? And then again, the detail's so small, I don't even believe what he's saying. And again, I just think it has to be a piss take.
Yeah, okay. All right. I don't know what just happened, but we were talking about visual effects, and John Lemley just bombed the super chat here. John, capitalism bad. What? George Lucas good. Canada needs better business cards and looser videotape return policies. Okay, I know you're making a joke. I know it's regards to American Psycho. but I don't know why you spent that much money to make it. That's going to be there for a good 20 minutes, sir. But okay. Thank you. I just don't get it. Okay.
Apparently, Glib has gone transgender on us.
Glib is... Oh, that's fun. That's always fun. Thank you, Glib, for getting out of the closet there, or whatever you're doing. Where is Glib? Is he even here? He's not even in the chat.
Come on, man.
Oh, hi, Glib.
Oh, hi, Glib. Doing great.
How's your sex life?
Oh, it's complicated.
Don't answer that. Yeah.
It's something like it's. Never mind. I was gonna make a debate joke.
Oh no. Yeah, I'm a Canadian, so we don't care. But even we saw the headlines, like, oh god. Last night that's one of the reasons why we didn't stream, and also because LitDev was doing his own thing. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna bother having a game night or Smudcast because. Yeah.
I was trying to bang my girl, but Chris Wallace kept interrupting.
Alrighty. Let's keep going. Joe Crazy. I have returned with a Kingdom's Heart quote. Of course you... I know. I stopped counting, sir. You're probably in the 15, 16 number. I don't know anymore. That was undeniable proof. We totally owned you lamers. Safer. That was during an hour-long tutorial from Kingdom Hearts 2. An hour-long tutorial with Safer from Final Fantasy VIII. The wonderful secondary or tertiary character. That was Safer. Oh my. What a wonderful experience that must have been for the gamers of Squaresoft Enix. And
I was sensing the despair in your voice slowly growing.
You can only imagine. I hate Final Fantasy VIII, so you can imagine having a character from Final Fantasy VIII in a Kingdom Hearts game, which is just insane. So anyway.
I thought it would be your dream come true.
Oh, because there's some weird fans who absolutely love, out of all the final, they love number 8, and I sit there going, "Are you crazy? Like, what is wrong? How do you like this game?
Are you wacko?"
Yeah, it's like a bizarro version of Final Fantasy. So you're like, why would you like this? This is not what Final Fantasy. Anyway, let's stop talking about Final Fantasy. Let's get back to Star Wars, visual effects.
His head changes from one version to another with a little bit of a shape morph. Now, it's possible that even now that I've pointed it out, there are still some of you that don't see what I'm talking about, and if you're one of these people, just watch it a few more times until you get it. When I first found this clip online, I was fascinated by it. As someone who spends a lot of his time editing videos, I love seeing small moments in motion pictures that aren't what we might expect in Hollywood-level editing. Whether this is small continuity mistakes or big mistakes in editing, I love learning about them. However, a lot of people that saw this clip didn't share the same lighthearted opinion. There are quite a few people that were angry at this clip, focusing most of their rage at the mastermind behind it all, George Lucas. And let's be honest, it's way too easy to get mad at George Lucas for his editing.
Okay, so Shiny, this is just
okay. So he is taking.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Now I'm. Okay. First, I thought he was taking the piss. Now I don't know if he's actually being serious or not, because I thought he was going to parody someone who was like shitting on the prequels, but no, he's apparently going full in.
So I'm assuming someone either actually made a video claiming this was a visual effect, or I don't know. He's actually just making a joke. He's going for it.
He seems to be going a bit far for at this point.
Okay, I have no idea. All right,
just for a joke, it seems a little extreme.
Yeah. Here's Joe Crazy. Safer is also aged down. I thought they aged them down too in the Kingdom Hearts games. I never played past 1, but you see the stylized version of Cloud and Sephiroth and all these other characters from the Final Fantasy games. Like, that doesn't look the way they probably should, but that's fine. It's more cutesy that way. It's easier to render. I get it. John Lemley, you're finally lowering your money down a few notches. Good for you, sir. Save some cash. How much do I need to spend to make you watch and play the video game version of Tim Burton Willy Wonka? Also, Final Fantasy VIII is best. What?
I mean, you'd have to find a way to actually play it for one.
Well, no. Let's just watch the movie.
No,
because he wants the video game.
Let's not watch the movie. Let's not play the video game. Why would you even recommend these? Like, don't even suggest these things.
Because it would be hilarious.
Okay, the movie at least is short compared to a game. A game is like 10 hours long or whatever. It would not be hilarious. It would be painful. This is a guy who went through Legend of Dragoon just to get to the end boss, as much as it hurt my eyes every time he played the game because of the freaking epileptic seizures the combat gives you. So, no.
The game's been given a pretty good rating of 4 stars out of 5.
Which?
The Charlie and Chocolate Factory game.
Really?
Yeah.
From where? From who?
Amazon 16 rating from 16 ratings. Game frequently asked questions from 9 ratings. Not many, but I can try other places.
It is possible that games are better than their movie counterparts and vice versa. So it happens a lot. But I would say the movies are usually, unless you're talking about like the Resident Evil series, the games I would say are superior as game standards goes, but not for storytelling reasons. I think the movie versions of the Resident Evil series, which is gigantic, is well, I've never actually watched one, but from what I've seen, it does not look like something you want to spend money on or 2 hours of your time. And as for Final Fantasy VIII, no, it is not the best. It is one of the, I don't know what to call it. It's so bizarre. I can't even play it anymore. Alex Halo, you killed Lancer. You're not human. Fate quote. Really? Who is that from? I'm trying to think. I know Lancer dies a few times, but who actually says that quote? I'm kind of curious now. Anyway, more John Lumley. Now you're going back up, sir. You're doing it backwards. You're supposed to go down in price, not up in price. You're not helping. You're not helping your argument, sir. This is Is this $200 enough for an in-depth analysis series of the BioShock franchise? I could. Yeah, no, we talked about that before, sir. This is something on my plate. So I would go back to the original, and I've already remember doing the Infinite stuff on an older video. But yes, it's definitely worth taking a look at for its popularity, for its storytelling, the way it uses the narrative focus, and especially the whole, not time travel, but the dimensional travel element. So that deserves some analysis, I admit, yes. So no, it's on my plate. It's just new computer needed. So don't worry, everything is ready to be bought. Okay, I don't need extra cash to buy the computer. But thank you anyway, sir. It's okay. Mike tested. Did someone say Kingdom Hearts? No, they didn't. Shut up. Mr. X. Smudboy, please teach me how to get rich by getting trolled. I don't know what you're talking about.
Step 1, get an audience. 2, make sure those audience are dicks. 3,
the fact that you're getting money and just from people saying play this game is pure fucking stress right now to me.
why?
Because I want money.
Okay, you know what?
Get a few thousand subs, voice.
Voice, I'm going to give you... What did he want? What do you want me to do? Aside from BioShock.
Play the Charlie and Chocolate Factory game.
Tim Burton, Willy Wonka
for
game.
Xbox.
Okay.
I've never actually played a Kingdom Hearts game.
No, not Kingdom Hearts.
Willy Wonka.
I would not victimize you that way. I would let you try the Willy Wonka game.
I probably have the Xbox game somewhere in my house.
The Willy Wonka
I used to own
game.
The Willy Wonka Xbox game.
What is that?
I don't know, but if you want money, I'm going to give you money,
game.
And you're going to play that game. How's that sound?
I don't have... Is it 360?
I don't even know.
It's original Xbox.
I don't have one of those.
Is there an emulator we can use?
I was thinking, an emulator, but I'm not sure it's popular enough that it would have gotten an emulator. I don't know.
Well, no, I mean...
If someone can find an emulator, then by all means.
Right. Like, we could probably find the game to buy on, like, eBay or something. And then just...
I like the...
I already own the game. I just don't own an original Xbox. That's
you own the game. You could send the game to Voice. That'd be great.
I don't have an original Xbox, though.
Isn't it backwards compatible?
It should be, yeah.
Is it? Why am I playing this?
Because you want money.
Not that badly.
I'm just saying, this is how you get money.
I'm looking at the
I
box.
could test. I don't know if it'll work, but next time I go home, I could test my original Xbox to see if it's still functional, and I could try and jerry-rig some kind of capture card to try and capture it. Who knows? Maybe. The disc is probably scratched to shit from my 5-year-old self.
Okay, well, just try it out, Shiny, and if it works, I want you to send it to Mr. Voice, and we'll compensate.
I don't get the money?
I'll give you some
What
money,
am I
too. Yeah, I got to pay for shipping. This is fine. I don't care.
What am I going to do with this?
I don't know.
Play it.
Play it. Capture yourself playing it.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Okay, anyway, that's your project, boys.
How's he going to play it? He's got no hands. He's a radio.
This is not my problem, okay?
I'll figure something out.
All right.
He'll jerry-rig it.
There we go. Joe Crazy. John Lemley, not until he watches the entire Kingdom Hearts franchise. I don't think there's enough money in the room or this year you can give me to play or watch the entire. That's not even possible. Like I would get sad and walk out of the room before I kept watching. No, that's not going to happen. So sorry.
Kingdom Hearts, is that the one with the Disney characters?
They take Disney characters, they take
Yep.
Square Enix characters, and they just slam them together with some JRPG bullshit, and it hurts your brain. So.
That sounds bad.
Oh dear. It is. I mean, when you say bad, that's like, hey, The Room is a bad movie, but it's fun to watch, right? Kingdom Hearts is, hey, there's Goofy trying to kill Donald Duck because he's captured by shadows. And you're like, what? or some bullshit. It's just insane shit.
Heartless.
The Heartless.
They're called Heartless.
Oh,
but
okay.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lore. Okay, we got the proper definitions there. Good. Alex Halo.
I've
Everyone
only,
says the quote.
seen it played. I've only seen it played.
Oh yeah, no, it's scary. Everyone says the quote in Carnival Phantasm. Okay, that's the spoof joking version of Fate. Carnival Phantasm doesn't apply. That's like the creators are just having fun. So anyway, here's Rox Azuzi. Hello, Smudboy. Time for our Kingdoms. We just had a Kingdom Hearts quote, guys. Come on, take it easy.
Piss off. We need to actually watch the video.
One per channel, one per stream. All right, one.
Send some to LitDev.
Yes, go bug LitDev. Go give him cash, and quote Kingdom Hearts. Okay. Hoy. I'm like you, Roxas. I don't remember much from the beginning either. Zion? I don't know. All these Germanic, Jesuit words. I don't understand them.
I like potatoes.
Potatoes are cool.
If you're Irish,
I completely forgot Glib was here.
potatoes are awesome. Yes. John Lemley, what the hell is going on, sir? I don't know. Was it payday for you guys? I don't know what's. Anyway, John. Fateful Findings watch party and Kingdom Hearts series playthrough. I'm just.
No.
Wait, not at the same time, right? That's
I want to watch Fateful Findings. But,
Yeah.
I'm not doing shit with Kingdom Hearts. You guys can do that.
Yeah. So okay, I'm with Glib on this. Fateful Findings, because we're doing movie night. We're watching Dread. It was supposed to be today, but
Hell yeah.
no one got back to me aside from LitDev and Fairy Joker. Everyone else was like, "Meh."
I'm ironically busy, yet I can't seem to go anywhere. It's one of those fucking things.
I told my times. It's basically just any time that's not any like Monday through Thursday evening.
Yeah.
That's the time I gave.
All right. So we can do it Monday to Tuesday or Wednesday next week, and we're going to do Dread. So one of those days, we're going to figure it out. Fateful Findings will probably be the next vote, and I'm sure it got a lot of votes. So we're going to do it up to the community tab one more time. Kingdom Hearts, I don't know, man. I don't think I could stomach it. I really don't. I would have to pass the Shiny or Voice again. I don't even know which one to play. There's so many. Like, you'd have to be very specific. Like, the first game I actually did play, so I guess that's stomachable, but it's just so strange. So, yeah, we could do a poll on what to do a game review of in Kingdom Hearts, we can definitely.
What makes you not like it?
I don't like the idea of amalgamating franchises if they don't work well together. And
fair point.
And when you put Final Fantasy and Dream World, like Dream Worlds are bad enough, but this is like Dream World soul bullshit with franchise thrown on top. And it's an action adventure, weird battle system, and I just don't like it.
You gotta give John credit somewhere.
we gotta do something for John. I realize that.
Yeah,
but
I like this is it's like what LiteratureDevil said. Did something I thought was really great, where he got a really big super chat, and then he tried to like fold that into some sort of Indiegogo thing. So I think that's a good idea. I also want to just tell John Lemley, like, there's no way any of these super chats are going to convince me to do anything.
We're not strippers.
That's the way that it is. Exactly.
Right.
But maybe maybe he's on the hook.
I'm so desperate for money, I would. If I had a body. But I don't.
What you just do is you just kind of strip off your casing.
I'm not going to ask people for money until I provide a product I feel like is as like this is a product, you know what I mean? Smudboy puts out this Smudcast, I guess we're going to call it. And it's like a regular thing, so it's worth supporting, that kind of thing. I don't feel like I do anything necessarily yet. I contribute to other people's thing, hopefully. It's a positive, but I don't have that product yet. So I don't
Set up a Patreon.
In a way, you can't really buy me yet.
Set up a Patreon, do it.
No.
Fucking do it.
I don't have anything to give people yet.
Well, find more money for me then. I'll just take.
Shiny, everybody, if you want to donate to me, just give your money to Shiny, because he's in uni and he needs the money.
There you go. Shiny needs.
I will take that money too. I have a product.
All right, tell you what.
I'm saying, you can justify it. You have something to sell people. I like that. Smud has something to sell people. LiteratureDevil sells people. I'm excited to get through with this review and stuff, so I have something, and then I'm gonna write a comic and get in on the comic skate stuff. Shill that every morning.
I don't have any.
Shiny makes good stuff now too.
I'm hurt, Glib. I'm hurt.
Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier.
All right, now let's get into why George Lucas is a good director. And I'm gonna agree with the title, but I'm gonna disagree with the prequels being well directed or something.
All right,
yes.
Really
let's discuss how we're gonna figure out movie night and game night or whatever later, and we'll just keep on going.
Yeah,
They're all.
Though I still don't understand the reptoid that was on Anakin Skywalker's chin. You know, not everyone sees the reptoid on the first viewing, and that's exactly what the filmmakers wanted you to think.
Anybody see the pizza roll that starts talking to the audience?
It's again, that was very bizarre with the opening. It's like, oh well, you know, here they morph his face. Not everyone sees this on the first watch. As I legitimately thought it was a parody, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I still think it's a parody myself. All right, let's keep going.
Some of our favorite movies, such as having Greedo shoot first, the Jabba's Palace song, and even CG Jabba himself. Fans were angry that he threw a bunch of CG changes into the originals and were unimpressed with the CG forced into the prequels. But how bad were George's edits really? I know that this is a pretty uncommon phrase, but I don't think that George Lucas should get all the hate that he does. And now before you grab your pitchfork and type an angry comment about how I'm wrong, just hear me out. Let's go back to the beginning. When George Lucas was making Star Wars A New Hope, people didn't think that he would be successful.
God, I really never thought that the Sand People would be
children's film.
I'm not putting down the British crew, but there was kind of attitude like, what is this?
When word of the various post-production problems reached the Fox board of directors, they decided they'd had enough of George Lucas and that science movie.
Some of my friends were very honest. You know, I don't get it. It's kind of, what are you doing here? So that was basically the tenor of the whole thing.
He really looked like he was ready to burst into tears.
Industry insiders had been predicting doom for Star Wars.
But man, were they wrong. Now, Star Wars is probably the most influential series of all time. How? It's not because George Lucas did what he knew he was able to do, but because he took risks. So for now, I'm going to put George into the category of risk.
Just the idea of taking
And if
risks
he has an idea that he thinks
doesn't
will
mean
work,
it's good.
he has to assume
Peeing
that
into the
whatever
wind
people
is a
say
risk.
against his idea is not relevant.
I think you have to make good risks which have a
good
possibility of paying off. Well, you when you make a risky film is a film which it's still like theoretically you're still hoping to make it good to some standard of quality, but it's whether people are going to like it, which is the more difficult part. Say, there's just theoretically speaking, not. Let's say if we made a film entirely revolving around a completely unlikable character, that would be risk. That would be Ray. Sorry, that would be a risk, because how would the audience, identify with this character? That's a risk, because you don't know if it's going to be successful. It's not a risk of quality. You don't make risk with quality. You don't just roll the dice. Because it's a structure. You build the structure. You don't just hope you don't throw the pieces in the air and hope they land on the right spot.
I think he's just categorizing George as a risk taker, but that's a stupid way to categorize people. Some people are gonna take a riskier concept, I guess. I don't even know what risk is referring to in this endeavor. It seems like kind of a shallow category.
Well, it's like, oh, you took a risk once in your life. Well, you're a risk taker.
This film, they didn't know how the film was gonna do, so he's a risk taker. I mean, that's a lot of films. So I don't know what who else is in that category. David Lynch, I guess. What else?
Guillermo del Toro to a certain extent.
Yeah, I thought of Dune at exactly the same time, just because it's a science fiction, and no one thought that film was going to get made. So yeah, but even Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that was a very strange thing. That when we saw the history of that, how it was made, it was like, is this going to work? There's so many elements that don't connect. Filming was done in a very strange way. So, and that was one of the most famous, if not the most watched children's movie when I was in grade school. Like, it was shown every year. And I don't know if it's still popular nowadays. I doubt it. But wow, what an impact on at least my childhood.
It's hailed as a classic, but it's not frequently watched since there's been something of a flooding of the market in terms of children's media day and age.
Right, with Pixar and Disney, exactly, yeah. All right, here's John Lemley again. There you go, back down to your normal self. The prequels aren't well directed, but they're beautifully written. Let me think about that. No, I disagree.
Incorrect.
I think they have
let's take a mulligan on that one.
I think they have an interesting. They have a relatively solid overall structure. It's just that there are a number of dings into the structural integrity of the work that kind of.
I think the writing and the directing were the worst part of the prequels, which is probably what led it all to fall through. Again, because I don't think the actors were well directed at all to how they should play their characters. And I don't think the writing and the dialogue was well written at all.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge directing after you first say writing, because once the writing is bad, everything you do for that writing is in service of the narrative. So it's like, okay, was it directed well? Does the scene make sense? Is it paced well? Does the dialogue snap? And it's just badly set up pieces, one after the other, because they're following the same through line. So it's like, if you start with crap, it's going to just spread out as you go to each conflict as it comes around. So you could argue, I'm not a very technical guy when it comes to directing, but you could argue that it was shot well. There were lots of great visuals. There were lots of good...
It's good CGI.
Yeah, lots of good visuals.
Very good technology there being utilized and pioneered.
For sure.
That now led the industry to where it is today by pioneering all these brand new techniques and technologies and software that we now very much take for granted.
It's very similar to how people see Christopher Nolan's Tenet right now, because it's such a strange, and you have to go watch it a second time, a third time, a fourth. It's like, no, you don't. You don't have to watch it that many times. If it's really that, and even some of the reviewers said it's one of those films that changes the whole idea of going to the movies. I'm like, I don't think that's a thing. I don't really think I need to watch a film 5 times to get it. So,
Tenet's strange. It's a very interesting structural movie. Like it's clear that there was a lot of effort put in, but it's just like it kind of hurts your brain, and the gimmick of the inverted time isn't really supported by interesting characters. It's mostly kind of just a lot of flat individuals kind of doing stuff.
I did watch the Thought Theater, who we were about to cover their video, but it got outvoted. And I left a comment on there, and he's great video, fantastic video on Tenet, except the last 10 seconds where I left a comment on. But that's a guy whose video was about his love of episode 9, and they changed his mind, and we were about to touch that, and we're like, maybe touch it later. So anyway, Tenet is a film for another time to discuss, for sure. Rox is Uzi. In terms of gameplay and story, I think the best one to play is Kingdom Hearts 2. Really? Interesting. Okay. Also, you do realize you can skip the cutscenes and enjoy the awesome gameplay. Well, that would sort of defeat the purpose of playing that kind of game. You want to get into the game. You want to listen and read and follow along.
Well, the things about a story game is that the story should be good, so you shouldn't have to skip it.
Cutscenes should add to the experience. Yes, it should not be skipped.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, if that's the game, we're going to spend some cash and get it over to Mr. Voice to play. So, DB,
Charlie in the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah. Ryan Johnson took risks in TLJ. I don't know if he did. I honestly don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he was like, "This is what I want to do. This is like."
Well,
totally...
insulting your audience could be considered a risk.
Yeah, but he doesn't care.
It's a risky thing to do, to give people a middle finger, which are giving you your paycheck.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand Ryan Johnson's thought process of how those ideas came about and why he thought they would work. But again, that's fine. Everyone has their own way of doing things.
I mean, I don't think he was thinking.
I don't think a lot of thought went behind them either, but I think a lot of planning for what he wanted went into it. So the actual product was something else. Anyway.
He is at least a writer, unlike David Benioff, who is a failed novelist who conned his way into becoming a screenwriter.
He did write one good book.
You really still don't like them, do you? You're just holding on after all this time.
Well, I just hate that they're unethical swine that have no credentials and somehow con their way onto a TV show and ended up abusing their crew because of their stupidity.
Fair enough.
I still haven't read City of Thieves, but it's on the list of books I'm reading. So, but I got to go through a bunch of Game In and have to read Hyperion over again and a bunch of other sci-fi books. So I'll get to City of Thieves probably next year.
Oh, is that the one? The one with I think that. Which one of his has Molly Minx in it? Where there's this whole 3 paragraphs where the word ass is repeated 10 times.
I don't know. Anyway.
After all, people used to think that he couldn't make Star Wars into a good film, and now they think he's a genius. Now, I'm just making an assumption here, but it would make sense as to why he had all the power over the prequels that he did. I hear people all over the internet saying how much of a shame it is that George was surrounded by yes men, people that did whatever he said. As far as we know, people only knew him as a risk taker and a genius. And so while the editors might not have shared the same opinions about how the movie
god,
they went along with whatever
fucking
George said
the actor playing Jar Jar. I feel so sorry for him. Just look at him just randomly going around a room. Just look at him sitting there, just moving his head around a room, just really weirdly.
Yeah, but that's every motion capture actor.
I know, but I just feel really sorry for him just because of the character he had to play. Because, I mean, if you're playing Thanos or something, there's a bit more of a badassery to it. But when it comes to I don't know, Jar Jar specifically. I just feel sorry for the actor, especially since the actor came out with this really weird story of like, I am Jar Jar.
Oh, really?
None of you saw that? Where
No.
he said he came out and said he is Jar Jar.
Maybe that's the way that he played the character, and he defines the character. I mean, that's just the way that he feels about it. I don't know. I mean, I don't. You got the job. You're getting paid for it. Probably getting paid a lot of money to go around. I would love to get a job where I got paid to go. Aha! Hello, Eddie. What? Are you kidding me? You get paid to do that.
You couldn't pay me
Hang
to do
around,
that.
Eat a bunch of eat really nice food. Hang out with a bunch of rich people, famous people that all have interesting.
I would never ever play Jar Jar. I couldn't. Not even for the money. The risk is too much.
It's just not a risk-taking genius then.
Not everyone wants to
Obviously.
be an actor. I get that. So that's totally cool.
Well, it's not about acting. It's just Jar Jar specifically.
Oh, really? So you're okay with
I mean,
acting?
if I wanted to go into acting, I mean, I wouldn't want Jar Jar to tank my career.
No. I think anyone who wants to be an actor are happy to get whatever they can, no matter the role. And if you're talking about a big experience like the Star Wars franchise, I think most actors would be crazy to turn it down, no matter what the role was. But anyway.
Yeah, but then tell that to like Hayden Christensen, who pretty much that fucked his acting career for a long time. Now he's very much stuck to like smaller films.
People say he's a bad actor. You know,
he's doing much better in smaller films, and he's landed on his feet, and congrats for that. But I don't think people are the character has damaged his image so much that I'm not quite sure he would ever act in a big film like Star Wars again.
Well, nothing as big as a Star Wars. That's the thing. So that's not the problem. Even Daisy Ridley's having trouble getting work. That's probably because of this year and how business is. But it's just funny how she has to, like every actor has to keep pushing and selling themselves every time, and you're only as good as your last film.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to keep hustling. You have to keep the groove going, or else you're dead, which is kind of how it works in any kind of media business. So
I suppose if you in the meta, it's like not in the meta. If I didn't know like how terrible the prequels are going to be, I would probably accept it on the spot. But just knowing what I know now, I wouldn't step anywhere close to it.
Well, the story behind the actor for young Anakin as well as Jar Jar, they had some pretty bad times after the movie launched, and their childhoods, and what's his name was close to suicide. So that's definitely an aspect. But I think, given the opportunity again, he would take it. I'm quite sure.
I would do any role in Star Wars if George asked me to. Just give me the cash. I don't care. I'll play whatever. I'll play a stereotype of myself. I'll play Dexter Jetster.
But then you'd be
What do
known-
you know?
I mean, Dexter Jetster isn't that bad, but
I'll play the female waitress. What do you want, sweetie? Java juice? Jawa juice?
I just want to imagine that they just kind of juice Jawas. They just squish them up and pulp them.
I'll play a Jawa. I'll play two Jawas, one standing on the head of the other one. And I'll go, OOTD!
Booty tag!
I want to play, I'll play, what's it called? Nien Nub. That's what I always wanted to play, because I like going, hey, hey, hey. What's the hubba hubba de bibuda? Hey, hey.
Are you an Asian stereotype, sir? I can't quite tell.
George is a genius. That's why he uses some stereotypes.
Some part of the Orient is now an alien. It's like, what?
Kind of does. The Nemoidians are kind of Asian stereotypes, which I'm like, I don't care. You got something, but
yeah,
there are two of them.
I really don't care either, because it's funny that he played Samuel L. Jackson off type, so it shows that he's got like multiple layers of thought. But I hate this prequel. Like, the prequel's really good. People say it was a bunch of yes men. Yes, because it was a bunch of yes men. In the industry, Lucasfilm, before it was taken over by Disney, was known as a bunch of brown nosers that were all just trying to get on George's good side. That is the colloquial. You can take my word for that.
Funny enough, that's exactly what you were saying that you wanted to do.
What?
What, just do
Ground
anything
from?
for chat? Basically,
Yeah.
just yes.
Yeah, because it's fun. Because I like Star Wars and stuff. But I wouldn't want to be responsible for that. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't be like you look at these two people that had mental breakdowns because of how the community memed them so hard. Because of how, you know, all your whole early life you're being told that you're Anakin and spin. I'll try spinning. That's a good trick. That would drive anybody crazy. But I don't blame George for that. You know what I mean?
Oh.
So like,
No, it's basically just.
but if I was in a creative position, if I was one of George's producers, I wouldn't be a yes man. That's the difference, because there were yes men around. I would never want to be one of George's yes men. But if George wanted me to play fucking any character, I would. That's a different thing. That's the different departments. As an actor, it's not entirely your job to say to be totally at odds with your director. You have to be able to work with your director in a Spielberg and the situation that Harrison Ford had in the Spielberg years and with George Lucas was that they gave the actors a lot of control over details or how to play a scene. That was something that Harrison Ford really liked, which is why on Blade Runner he was at odds with Ridley Scott, because Scott wanted it one way. He wanted it the way that he wanted it, whereas usually the character was sort of built in collaboration. There's a range of how a director can act. Problem with George's direction in his later years, when he came back to it for the prequels, was that he was so hands-off, and yet he still had that authoritative sensibility that he wanted it one way. So he wanted it a certain way, but he didn't do a good enough job explaining it to everybody around him how clearly he wanted it. Because in the past, it was a different relationship with different kinds of professionals. Because those professionals in the beginning, that he was assembling, essentially they were a bunch of young kids. They were eager to prove themselves. At this point, now it's a bunch of professionals that all want to please their employer and keep their paycheck. It's a big difference.
Another problem is that George Lucas has stated often that he's using a 1930s style of acting, something that's kind of alien to a lot of the people that he is working with at this point in time.
Well, I'm not even sure he's using that kind of acting. I think he was just very hands-off and didn't quite know how to communicate. I don't think he understood the characters enough to direct the actors to how they should be playing these characters, to really understand them. And I don't think I don't know if he has the ability to actually, even if he knew how they should be playing the actors, to actually communicate it to them.
All right, let's keep going.
Editors might not have shared the same opinions about how the movie should have been made. They went along with whatever George said because he was the creator of Star Wars. Take a step back and think about what I've just said. Hopefully you'll notice the contrast between how he used to be perceived and how people view him now. Nowadays, people think about him more as the person that ruined Star Wars more than the person that created Star Wars. Back then, they only knew him as a genius. That was until the prequels happened. Here's a clip of George Lucas and his editor, Ben Burtt, working on a scene in Episode 1.
What's the worst of it?
That's going to be tricky. So what I want to do is, we'll leave this for the time being, and we'll create this other shot, and then if this other shot works, we'll come back to this shot, take Panaka, slip him out of sync so he doesn't start to move. There, just go forward. One. Try that.
What's the worst of it?
I'm going to do the other side. And I want to get just the tail end of it.
Right after lunch?
Yeah, I'd say 2 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be back in a couple hours.
Okay.
It looks to me like Ben Burtt was overwhelmed and maybe a little bit frustrated with what George Lucas was doing. Now, whether this is because he wasn't sure of what George Lucas was doing or he was just tired of editing, I think it's safe to assume that
He was
there
just
were some
tired
edits
of
going on
editing.
that most people might think were not completely necessary. Even
What is this?
using the example from this clip, all he's doing is making Captain Panaka sit down at a different time. I'm not saying that a disagreement between the director and the editor is a telltale sign that the film is not going to be good. Actually, if there was no disagreement at all, that would be super weird. This happens all the time, and it should. Here's a clip showing how Quentin Tarantino and his editor...
See, that was a very strange thing to argue, because this could have been done during a second take. George might have wanted it. Can you do this, like, sit down later as opposed to this? Like, they're doing it in post? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's a very minor thing compared to what we've seen.
interacted while working on the popular film Pulp Fiction.
In the beginning, he really doesn't guide me. And then I put together what I think he wants. And pretty much we've worked together so long I can judge what he would want.
And it was sort of like Sally's job to kind of like, little by little convince me to bring it down and bring it down and bring it down. Just like, letting me...
It was sort of her job to constrain you, which is what the editing does, constrains the content. So that's a point in the editor's favor, not in the director's favor.
Yeah, you need an editor. Doesn't matter if it's just straight writing of dialogue or narration or actually composing a scene. You have to cut stuff out. You have to control a scene so that it's focused. As soon as you add stuff or it's getting too long, that's where the editor is like, okay, we got to call them in.
The director has a movie in it, or whatever. He or she has a movie in his head, right? And then what's happening is they might not be able to completely explain how and when they want something to happen, and they may have to see it and translate it from their vision into the content. But the editor doesn't have this vision in their head. What they're looking at is only the content that is given to them, and they're trying to patch it together. They have all of the criticism and all of the opinion that comes from someone who's seeing the content for the first time and then has to wrangle it all together. So you have to have somebody that you really trust as an editor to give you a counterpoint. And when the editor of Star Wars is telling you, George, you go from here to here and there's a tonal shift, that's something that from their experience, the audience is going to pick up on. You're assuming that this editor has seen enough movies that they are so passionate about films that they understand when to cut, when something should stay for this long. And ultimately, the director should be the one that has final say, but the director then should have almost total confidence in their editor. The differences should be so minute that it's a matter of style, not a matter of like of an intersubjective opinion. Like it should be like, the director wanted to play this out longer than I would usually cut it, and that's because it's a style choice.
And we expect
there's extra time that needs to be cut.
We expect the director to actually film more than is necessary. That's assumed that they're going to film an hour extra, let's say. But what we don't expect is for them to spend all this money on visual effects or practical effects and et cetera, et cetera. The editor's job is not to come in and say, hey, you're doing too much. That would be someone who's looking at the budget, if there is someone who's looking at the budget and going, you shouldn't be spending this much money. We don't have enough for the next scene or whatever. So there's a lot of things going into what a director does, whereas the editor just says, okay, after the fact, or rather before shooting, they look at the script, and after the fact, they look at the scene, like a visual editor or a sound editor or whatever you call those fellows who work in multiple media. So editing is one of those very fine arts that it's kind of like making something taste better when it's already a good thing. It's kind of hard to work with something which is bad and just cutting out all the fat, because you're cutting out a lot of the content, which is not what you want from an editing job. Like if Dunn were to write a book and I was the editor and he had 4,000 pages of this war, and I'm like, dude, this is too much war. It's like, that's the point of the book. You have to have, it's like, yes, but it's just constant death and slaughter, talking about death and slaughter. Here's a scene where there's death. Like, it's just too much. And, this is something that you have to contemplate, say, well, do you want this book to be broken up into 3 parts? Do you want one giant thick tome? So there's lots of things to consider when you're working on that just, if your medium is just words, it's great. When your medium is visual and audio, it's a whole other ball game, and the editors have to get called in. And I'm sure Shiny knows all certain tricks and techniques to achieve a goal without having to film extra scenes. So yeah, it's a big conversation here to talk about how to do things properly and clean things up right.
Live with it long enough so I could eventually, okay, I've had it enough. I've seen that enough. Okay, maybe now I can lose this part. Okay, so now it's like here and now it's like here.
Finally, we'd bring it down, and then I kind of brought it too far down, and then he said, we got to bring it back out.
That's it. No more. This is not a video.
We do that for 8 months so intense. I see him more than my husband.
And sometimes I, get annoyed with her for not reading my mind 100%. I mean, all right, it's not good enough that she reads it 80% of the time, all right?
Of course, these arguments are essential for a film to be made. Second opinions can change the entire feel of a movie. The opinion of the director might not be the best opinion, and the editor might have a better idea of how he thinks the scene should go. For instance, when Alexander Payne directed Election, he wanted one of his scenes to flow similar to the stare-off in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, while his editor, Kevin Tent, wanted it to be edited in a much quicker pace.
I was like, no, let's cut it really fast and build to a climax.
And I didn't want to do that. I thought it was cheesy and would call too much attention to itself.
And he just wouldn't want to do it. He wouldn't want to put it in the movie like that. So finally I said, I'll pay you $25.
And I said, no, let's not do that.
I go, okay, 50.
And I said, no.
He's like, no.
And I said, 75.
So he even gave me an invoice, and it says I owe him $75. So I paid him $75 to cut it in, and that's how it is now.
I think successful editors are really sly politicians.
Do you think that at some point or another, someone said, "Listen, George, I don't think that it would be the best idea to have Jar Jar Binks break the fourth wall"?
No, it didn't happen. Or if they did, George just ignored them and said, "Aha!"
That would be a bad idea, yeah.
I'm sure they did. Maybe they didn't. But either way, it's fair to say that most of the moments that we would call mistakes in Star Wars were decisions made by George Lucas, and people allowed him to make these decisions.
Not necessarily.
Why is he showing all this with this title? It's like this is drawing a counter-intuitive argument.
What's the name of this? What's the name of this video again?
Why George Lucas is not a bad director? Is he being sarcastic?
I guess.
This is the best sarcasm I've seen in a long time.
Because he was also the creator of a lot of the moments that we would call brilliant. But hang on, aside from CGI, we've only really talked about hidden edits in films so far. Things our eyes shouldn't even be drawn to. You wouldn't think that these edits would completely change someone's opinion of a film,
yeah, but
so why bother with
that's not CGI. First of all.
No, that was just...
That's filming something on a blue screen and then putting it as a plate and cutting it out and sticking it elsewhere, which is throughout the original.
Still visual effects.
It's not
CGI though.
I know.
So he said CGI and then sort of covered like, hey, look, this is CGI, but it's not. So like
he said hidden effects, and I was like, okay.
It's like the way I do it. I remember them doing it is that they do them on a blue screen and then they color chrome. They color chrome the asset out and stick it back in.
I think he's using the terms like interchangeably. Of like the term, CGI and visual effects. It's not the first time I've heard it being used, inappropriately. Even then, to a lot of people, it just means the same thing.
It's not.
I know it's not the same thing because visual effects is a lot more broad, but it's just to your average person.
Fuck the average person.
They could very easily make the mistake.
Smack them up.
But
wake up, people! Learn your filmmaking terms.
Even though he uses the wrong term, I think he is talking about visual effects.
You should be
talking more specifically. I think he's talking more about green screen because obviously with the CGI, it's green screen and such.
That is a matte. It's the blue screen. Take away the blue channel. Replace it with a cutout of a matte painting that is made, and you then re-record the film. It's very simple, very classic, and the only thing that, honestly, it actually is good when you have the CGI element to kind of blend those edges. So CGI to blend the mattes would be good, but they didn't do that in that movie. That was all analog.
They could have done it. They could, but why? Why would they do that? Why do any of that?
Well, they could do that now.
Done.
Well, maybe they're just big dum-dums.
They are big dum-dums.
It's the director's job.
Well, this is why George Lucas is not a bad director.
To make his film the best it can be. And that's what it all boils down to when you think about it, editing small things because he feels it might make the film better. Let's go back to the original clip of Hayden Christensen's face. I'm sure he acted the scene out just fine, but maybe he didn't pick up on Palpatine at the time George Lucas felt was best. Or maybe he did something that was too distracting and took attention away from Palpatine, and so it was edited. Here's an...
Do another take. Do another take, you lazy prick.
What was edited in that? Sorry, I didn't.
There's a morph cut. There's a morph cut that changes the way that Anakin is looking. I honestly never noticed it the first couple times that I watched it.
Wait, so he wasn't joking about that?
No, there's a literal morph cut that when they're having that conversation. It's actually pretty well hidden, but his like head changes. And then
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so it's I feel like that's a good effect. Matthias says glib.
He pointed in this corner. He said he pointed in this corner and said, "Look at it change. It doesn't change." It's like, what the fuck? What the fuck is he on about? I didn't notice it the first time. It's like honestly talking about fucking reptoids. I thought he was trying to be parodying or something.
He's being serious, I guess. Here's Rox Suzuzi. Fair enough, but you have to face the game's 15 super bosses. I want to see you suffer against the Lingering Will boss fight.
Shit.
Lingering Will boss
I
fight.
do not care at all about that. Does anybody here legitimately care about Kingdom Hearts?
No, Voice does.
It's a difficult game.
It's not even an interesting concept to me. Sorry.
If I wanted to see different Disney films mashed together, I'd go to Disneyland.
Yeah, that's true.
Good point.
It is the best Disneyland game, though. That's true.
I think they serve alcohol there, so it's probably
in a difficult series.
Yeah.
Fuck you guys. The bosses are good.
I love all these ridiculous quotes, but the point is that with the average person thing, it's like if somebody's figured out the right thing, then the everybody should adjust to.
Well, if they're wrong, they're wrong. Correct them. I'm assuming that's what you're talking. So if they wrongly say, well, we can't really, tell him, oh, well, you said it wrong. We can only really interpret it that he intended to say it this way.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I agree.
Another argument that I hear online a lot. People say that actors' performances shouldn't be edited because they're being paid to be good actors and not being...
Nobody says that. Nobody says that at all.
Obviously, everyone says that. You can never edit. You should never edit actors, ever.
That's still stupid. Everything is reconstructed. You should... The point against... the edit that George was asking for, where he's like, "Oh, can you have him sit down a little slower?" It's because he didn't shoot coverage to present himself with that opportunity. He probably did the least amount of takes possible, shooting it as fast as possible in as comfortable environment as possible. That's the reason why he wanted to do all of these changes, because he realized when he was in editing that he missed something. Because he probably didn't check the gate. He probably didn't watch dailies. He was probably a really lazy director, and he's his own producer, so he doesn't have any oversight. That's the problem. That's what people point out.
In comparison to the original trilogy, the prequels, with the amount of sets and dressage and all that crap, it's an overlooked hotel-style monster of a series, jumping from all these different locations with all these different characters. You probably is impatient to get onto the next thing. It's like, good, great, that was fine. Can I do
now?
We
need to go on to the space alien fungus planet. Felucia is a space alien fungus planet.
I will put that towards the prequels. They really made the universe feel like a universe. Like I could, and I mean, that goes towards.
No two planets are alike as well. He always tried to make a planet feel and look unique. I think the closest you get is like Geonosis, which is kind of a sandy planet. But even then, the structures and formations they're different.
More like ant or termite constructions.
Yeah, and those are listed all over Geonosis. And also, it's a different color of sand. Have you noticed Geonosis is like more orangey, whereas Tatooine's is like more, traditional yellow, sandy kind of sand. But Anakin hates it either way.
Sandy kind of sand.
That was awesome.
If you notice over here in this pixel, you can see the sand is really actually CGI.
Paid to manipulate it in post. While researching this video, I heard a lot about an interview with Ewan McGregor, where he's saying he's upset when he saw himself saying dialogue that he never spoke in real life. They had taken 3 or 4 shots and combined words to make Ewan say what George Lucas wanted him to say. And if that's the case, why couldn't they just reshoot the scene?
Probably
There's a
because
lot
of
of reasons.
poor oversight again.
Well, why reshoot the scene? Why not just do another take? Why not know what you want ahead of time? This is the whole point in like the TPM debates and all the debates and every point that I made of criticism is that you could have saved this in dialogue. If he wanted a different line, he should have known that during the table read. They cut corners, and you can't defend that. They did something sloppy that was supposed to be done with the utmost precision. That was the expectation.
Didn't you have the suspicion that he went with the first draft?
Oh, he did. Well, there's visual evidence of him holding up the first draft of Revenge of the Sith and presenting it to everybody in the production office. How does that work? Imagine if I said to somebody, "Here, give me $250 million to make this movie. Do you have a script?" No, but when you have the sets built, I'll give you the script. Do you think anybody would take that deal? They want a final draft version of the script as close to possible when they buy it, and then they're going to still make changes to it.
Because one of the things I noticed, because I did not know the power of redrafting until I redrafted. Because I needed to redraft one of my videos, and I didn't realize until then. It's like, holy fuck, this video is completely different, and it's so much better.
That's Mahler's number one criticism. That's his suggestion to people making content is to redraft.
Because I was making these videos, and one of my latest ones, which was the not the Shadowversity one, the problems with new Star Trek. I all I did was write it out once and then read it out on mic, and I really wasn't happy with the end result. But I put all the effort in. I may as well redo it anyway. And then I was going through the same thing with my current video. It's like I went through all the way to editing. I edited and did 15 minutes or something, and I just realized that I've got to go back and I've got to redo all these lines. And I went back and I just sat down and I redrafted the whole damn thing. And I was like, oh my god, this is so much fucking better. It's like this is what the power of the redraft. It's amazing.
Power of the redraft compels you.
And the power of reading your own script out loud to yourself. The power of doing a table read if you have dialogue, multiple characters with other people. The power of acting out scenes. The power of casting by having open casting sessions and rehearsing scenes. It's all about preparation. And the PT, ironically, was not prepared at all. It was like, let's rush into all the stages of production because then we can save as much money as possible by compartmentalizing and making everything all compacted into a set amount of time, and I'll deliver the script at this time. He went into production with Revenge of the Sith. He went into production potentially with Attack of the Clones before he was ready to go. Clearly before it actually was ready to go. And that ended up making a rushed film that he needed to save in editing. But the problem is it's stylistically designed to be that way. Just like what he said with the Phantom Menace behind the scenes. He realized he wrote a script that had tonal inconsistencies, something that his editor had mentioned beforehand and then after screening it for the first time. And then he had regrets about it and wanted to make changes. But he should have seen that to begin with, and either he didn't sit down and take enough time or have enough dissent inside or outside of his mind in the form of other people telling him about what they thought. To have the foresight to be able to predict that they would work out the way that it did. I don't think he intended to make the movies that he made. I think that he didn't think about the consequences of some of the shortcuts he took.
When will you learn your actions have consequences? I'm memeing, but hey.
No, I know. It's a good meme. You
That's why they wouldn't want to shoot B-roll. Maybe it was because it was just a few seconds that needed to be altered, or maybe it would be too expensive to redo just one part. But I think the biggest reason...
It's interesting to look at effects before they are finished. Just to see the end result, and often before you start adding the effects, I do find it funny. Again, with the Jar Jar thing. Never mind, I'm just tangenting, never mind.
It doesn't have to be reshot. I mean, we have the technology, and George Lucas is a risk taker, remember? So why not just use this new technology to remake actors' performances in post? Remember the shot in episode 3 when Darth Vader was introduced?
This is a very strange argument. He's saying that because he has the money and the time and resources and technology, why can't he just do what he wants? It's like, sure.
Just because you have the ability doesn't mean you should do something.
Yeah, these are problems that could have been
just
solved
because you have
traditionally, as opposed to technologically. So,
like we have the technology to bring back Carrie Fisher, in CGI. It doesn't mean you should do it. You have the technology. If you have a gun, you have the ability to go out and shoot someone. It doesn't mean you should do it.
If they actually just hired a voice actor to do her lines and shoot the actress from the back, that would have been a hell of a lot better than what was actually granted in episode 9. Because those scenes with Fisher or CG Fisher, whatever, that was her sister or daughter, rather.
Daughter, yeah.
Yeah, and Daisy Ridley just did not work. I mean, the whole movie didn't work, but like those scenes did not make sense.
I would have put Leia in if I was rewriting this bit. I would have put Leia have a line about how she's at the core worlds debating with other planets on getting them involved to fight the First Order, and that way she's out of the film.
That would make a lot more sense.
And that would explain why all those fucking ships turned at the end. She's there deliberating with all
as opposed to Lando just going off screen for an hour and coming back with the entire galaxy.
And then if you really you put her in the last part of the film, or better yet, you say, "Hey, where's Leia? She should be celebrating with us." And so she went up up to the cliff. Rey goes, finds her, and she's disappeared with the Force.
I think that just having her be dead from at the beginning would probably be the best option, and her death is what causes people to actually unite together.
It's something which is difficult to handle just in general, because it is, what do you do with so little? Because you sometimes you don't want it to be all forced in any way, but yet you're kind of stuck with what you can do.
Well, my thinking is that if you did it that way, you could have Leia still in the film, but you'd be CGIing her anyway, because you could have her show up as a hologram, as a communication to the people in the Resistance. She'd have to be CGI to begin with. And then that way it probably wouldn't breach that sort of uncanny valley thing that we have, where we know that she's not really there.
There's lots of ways to write around a death of a character, especially with technology we've got. But even without it, voice acting would have worked. Stand-ins from the back would have worked. So,
but voice, never underestimate a droid. Just out of nowhere, no context. Just never underestimate a droid out of nowhere.
Ray says that to Chewie, and he's like, first of all, he doesn't know what the fuck you're on about, and second of all, I don't think Chewbacca's ever doubted it.
I just want to
times.
I just want to imagine that old Leia's gone a bit senile, and she just starts randomly talking to people, just starts having half conversations. Hey, wait, are we having the same conversation here, Leia? I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah, would it work with Chewie if he just says something, and obviously the audience doesn't know what he's saying, or talking to BB-8, and she could speak droid now, or whatever the case might be? That could work, but no, I don't know.
But never underestimate a droid. I think one of the forced moments was when they had the annoying orange speak for her. It's Leia knows what she has to do. So Leia just stands up and walks off. It's you don't know what the fuck she's doing. She's going to the toilet for all you know.
Yeah.
It's shut up, Maz.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah,
bet
we
you didn't
all know
notice
this
that his
scene.
arms were replaced. Here's the original trailer for episode 3, but you'll notice something a little bit different.
Rise.
Oh my goodness, look, his arms are in a different place.
Well, in
When they shot the
defense,
scene, Darth
that's a
Vader's arms were
stupid.
attached to the board by his shoulders, but then edited to be by his side. Personally, I'm glad they made this change. Having his arms up looks pretty awkward. You could
Yeah, you're glad they made this change, but why did you have to spend millions of dollars to do it? Why couldn't you just look at the situation, record it, and then make a different thing? Why didn't you go to the prop house where they were building the prop, put yourself in the position that Anakin was going to be in, and film yourself doing different takes of it, and see what you really liked? That's the job of a director. George didn't want to do the job of being a director. He wanted to produce direct at the same time and just have things magically work for him. And that's it's a job.
It's that he's jumped to CGI, but he hasn't proved that this is CGI. How does he know?
No, he knows. They literally changed in post where the hands were. You can go and look it up.
Things like morph editing, that's not CGI. That's just image manipulation.
How do you know they CGI changed it in post? How do you know they really didn't do this?
I saw them do it.
The arms here themselves, to me, some of the stretching and the way they act, it seems more like
Look, go and look it up. You can look it up on
CGI.
YouTube.
Okay.
You can go and search that they did a digital post-production change. They either invented the movement through editing, or they did some animation with tweening, or they had a different take and pasted it. I don't know exactly what they did, but it's manipulated. What I'm suggesting is if you wanted the arm, what I'm suggesting is that if they wanted the arms to be in a different place, the point in the timeline of producing a film that you do that is way before you even have the main camera and the main setup. You don't even want it on set. Know how you want the scene to play out before you get there. That's the whole problem with this fix it and post mentality. It never works like that, and it's always more expensive. Because it's just like what they found out with Jar Jar. You can see in the behind the scenes footage, John Knoll or someone comes up to him and basically tells him that they don't need the outfit as the reference for how they're going to animate later. They figured out a way to not do it. And then George immediately thinks, wow, that's cool. That's going to be so convenient for us to do this, this, and this. He thinks, we just wasted $1 million. And he says that out loud because it took $1 million to generate the suit and all of that mentality. He was upset about that. Whereas the right way to do it is to look at something like Jurassic Park, where they were originally going to do go motion, and that was going to be like advanced stop motion technique to do the dinosaur work. But they found that they could do the CGI version. However, what they found is that the actual animation that they were going to do was better off in the CGI because they were basing it on the go motion footage that they had as a reference to physically work out how the dinosaurs were going to move in real life. They did that in 3D with actual clay and with actual models. Then that got translated by the animators into the keyframes for how the dinosaurs were going to move, and that combination created a very, very solid effect. That CGI holds up, and it's from the 1990s. I think it's probably the best from that era, from that specific slot in time. So I think that the perspective is you need to be able to know when to make the right decision and have confidence in your decision. And then if you look at it in post, have some sort of hedging of your bets if you haven't decided on the day of. Do more takes. Have more time to do more takes. That's the Jackie Chan Hong Kong way of doing it. Just keep doing it until you get the perfect take. But if you're lazy, none of this matters because then you're not going to do any of it. You're not even going to care. And that's what I see. I see a lazy movie.
Whoo-hoo. Here's an interesting super chat from Rock Suzuki. Star Wars is overrated, just like Fallout New Vegas. Okay. I could say Star Wars is overrated in certain episodes for sure. They love episode 4, 5, or 6 more than the others for other reasons, and we can give reasons for that, why it's so popular. Same thing with Vegas. I know that more mods are being made currently for Fallout 4, but I think people who love the series love New Vegas for a certain niche of Fallout player that everything just sort of jives. Not the best way. It's still a buggy game, really buggy game actually, but everything about it, the difficulty curve, the guns you get, the skills you use, the multiple factions, the multiple endings, everything just sort of fits nicely with the tone and the choices you get to make, the gameplay, really. So there's something special about the original series of Star Wars, the same way there's something special about New Vegas. And the same thing with Fallout 2. I love Fallout 2. People love Fallout 1. That isometric view was from a whole different era of gaming, and Fallout sort of brought that up outside of the Dungeons and Dragons style world into a more modern, strange, adult one. And that's really where the Interplay or Black Isle fellows got to express themselves. That I would say is even more mature than the other games. It's much more adult. It's much more funny and honest with itself. I'm quoting Monty Python and having all these ridiculous scenarios because they could. So there's lots of great moments in these games and stories. And is it overrated? Yeah, because of popularity, I would say Star Wars is overrated, being the biggest franchise in movie history. This doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, though. Unless you talk specifically about individual episodes and what makes them good or bad.
Even see how his arms used to be up in the final film. When he breaks the restraints holding him to the board, you can see how his arms come up and then out. Once again, I'm assuming most of you didn't notice that. I certainly didn't. Editing actors' performances is the job of the editor, no matter what. If an actor delivers a bad performance, an editor can still try his best to make the character fit into the movie just fine. But at the same time, actors can deliver amazing performances that are edited in a way that makes us hate the movie. As technology changes, it only makes sense that we're getting to a point where we can edit character performances in post-production.
This guy's really not making a good argument for why George Lucas is not a bad director. In fact, and he's starting to make me realize, oh shit, this seems to be worse than I seem to have imagined.
That's what made me wonder if it was satire. I was like, is this like low-key shade? Like, yeah, George just always makes decisions in post-production doing. Like, if you know about what they teach in the directing schools, it's like, this is not what you're supposed to do. This is postmodern, revisionist, we can fix it in post thinking. Like, yeah, editing can totally change. It all just sounds like cope mechanism.
Edit character performances in post-production, and in some cases, we need to. If an actor dies halfway through shooting a film, it used to mean that the story either had to be scrapped or changed.
Look at how bad that looks.
Yeah, it looks horrible.
Looks like garbage.
Yeah, okay, admittedly, when an actor dies in the middle of shooting, yes, then you need to go to more dire circumstances. But when you literally have the fucking actor sitting next to you while he's picking his fucking nose, then that's the point where maybe you just get off your ass and, actually do your fucking job.
It's possible to put things into a movie that the actor never shot. Besides, people don't seem to freak out as much when faces get replaced.
Yeah, that's because
the technology is getting better. That's why
everything in that movie, the Armie Hammer movie, where you have the social, the twins in the Social Network, is designed around that. They have shots where it has to be shot, framing one person that's going to be there and one person that isn't, and then you just do another take where that other person is there. Or you have to shoot it where you have a guy that has a face rig type situation where you can track his face, but he looks almost exactly the same. And that guy has to learn the mannerisms of Armie Hammer. Or, you can do it a variety of different ways, but you have to plan around that. And as I said before with the Jar Jar thing, they switched their plans up in The Phantom Menace because they knew that they didn't need the Jar Jar head, like mask thing with that, or the whole suit or whatever as a reference. They didn't need the colors to bounce a certain way. They could just come up with the character wholesale. They just needed CGI or whatever. So it's like, you can do face replacement stuff because it's a kind of small amount of work in comparison to a complete body replacement, and it still doesn't sell people. I think people talk about it, and that's something that is like, it makes it not invisible when people are complaining about how weird it is in the Fast and Furious movie, the way that they blended the character. I don't know.
Rogue One.
It's creepy. Yeah, Rogue One doesn't look good to me. So it's like, oh, there's CGI Tarkin. That looks like shit. Looks like shit.
One of the
It
visual
looks-
effects artists of
Looks like
Oz the
shit.
Great and Powerful said,
The thing is, when you have
"Never
motion,
shot a really
when you
good
have motion blur, it should be easier to hide the fact because it's hidden behind blur.
Yeah.
But it is a quick shot that you probably, if you weren't
Ironically,
looking for it, that you probably wouldn't see it.
Ironically, the blur problem is when you use a more typical film camera to capture the stuff and you want to map things in, you have to deal with grain and you have to deal with motion blur. And
Mhm.
animation, you have to apply the motion blur, which means that you usually have to do a de-grain, then add the stuff in, then do a regrain pass. And the motion blur has to be set up to kind of match how the shutter angle is of the camera and figure out how to blend those things together. It takes a lot of work to add more to film content, and that's why like post-production people, they want a really pristine image and digital image because then you can mess with it. So ideally in the future with digital film, they'll shoot something in a digital camera that is just really clear, and then there'll be a post-production way of adapting it down to look more like a film camera or to more look like this, like a lookup table to manipulate the colors. But that's down the line. We don't have that yet. And if we're being stylistically, if we're talking style, I got into movies because of film, just like what Quentin Tarantino says. I'm not really interested in the Arri Alexa because next year, 2 years down the line, they're going to come up with a better camera, and my film is going to be outdated like a video card or a video game. The graphics are going to be outdated. Whereas film locks itself into this aesthetic that's related to the emulsion process, and I find that to be interesting and to be unique, while not as clear an image. But we're getting into some like esoteric stuff that has to do with resolution and the size of a sensor and shutter angle, what kind of ISO we're going on, what kind of gamma, what the color space is, what kind of gamma shift there is. Like if you're using red code, there's so many layers of this kind of thing that we're talking about, and that's why I think the common wisdom is to get as much as you can done in camera, and give as clean an image to the post-production people, who then are able to have as much information as possible to process what you want, and then there's a key point in the production process there that ideally you would have as little, and this doesn't always happen, of course, but you would want to make the revisions and your notes as clear as possible to the post house so that they can get the job done faster, and you're not like being an annoying client that's overstaying your welcome. You want to be able to have a really good, just like how you have with your editor, a relationship where you have a difference of opinion based on if you have different styles as individuals, but you are very clear about what the job is. You want that relationship with your post-production house as well.
Transforming into the Wicked Witch. The editor used the hand and arm from one take, body and neck from another, and the face from yet another. You see, you wouldn't have known that these were from different takes, but they were used because we have the resources to do so. Disney has developed the technology to combine two different performances and transition between the two of them seamlessly. Here's a shot of a woman
The more
singing-
seamless it is, the less of a problem it is. But the thing is, still, it's why do you need to do this when you could just get it right the first time?
And we're talking about this is technology that didn't exist during the time of the prequels, so it feels weird for you to bring this up. This is something Disney came up with only a couple years ago.
So it's... Yeah, I know it's like George Lucas, doing stuff before its time, and he's pushing the technology and stuff. But it still doesn't get around the thing that you did. This wasn't necessary. If you get it right the first time, if you do your job, you don't need this.
What Edax said, it's still creating an uncanny effect that's making me uneasy. I like to minimize in my movies as much CGI interference because I think that subconsciously there's an aesthetic difference that your brain notes. I think your brain goes, oh, that's CGI if you notice it. The best effects you don't even notice are whatever it is. It's just, oh, wow, that looked really like it was happening.
It was really also. I'm trying to remember. It was a few years back when I was first kind of getting the technology. When I learned that a lot of in filming, you don't ever record in rain, and obviously because when you record rain on a camera, it just appears as fog. So whenever you see rain, it's always a post effect. And I never ever realized that until I was actually told it.
That's not true, because that's not how they did the original Jurassic Park. They created a rain system specifically because the T-Rex would have looked bad in broad daylight.
No, but
So
there's
they
a difference between a raining, because if you're creating a system which is specifically for cars and stuff, because it has to be interacting with the windows and the objects in the scene. But what we're talking here is about like a natural rain, because natural rain is much smaller drops and it's going over a much longer distance, and on the camera itself, it will see it as this big fog, which makes it just kind of really iffy to actually work with.
Yeah, okay.
Because if I remember the film actually correctly, the rain rig is more to interact with the actors themselves as they, because they're actually standing there in the rain.
From what I understand, it was because they had an animatronic T-Rex for those scenes to interact with, but because it looked really lifeless on camera, so they made it dark, they gave it a one source light, and they made it rain so you could get all the sort of shadows and specular highlights on it, and then all of a sudden it became far more detailed.
But then I still wonder if like the actual rain which you see in front of the lens, that's probably still an actual post effect. You're talking more about the rain as the what actually hits the T-Rex and
yes,
brings it to life.
Angrily.
He told me that Mary is leaving for California at the end of the month. She will stay there for a whole year.
Oh no!
And now
a whole
here's
year
Sean
in
with the
California.
Same sentence, sadly.
I met Frank last night in a bar. He told me that Mary is leaving for California at the end of the month. She will stay there for a whole year. A whole year.
Here it's demonstrated how the two clips can be altered so that it switches from sad to angry.
Oh.
He told me that Mary is leaving for California at the end of the month.
That was just
She will
weird.
stay there for a whole year. A whole year.
I don't like
The
that.
technology to do this kind of thing is getting better.
I don't think anybody does it.
Everybody goes, what? Okay, so this is the thing that Samuel L. Jackson was saying. Now you're acting like a technician. You want to shoot here, you want to shoot here, you want to shoot here, and then you want to reconstruct the entire scene in digital afterwards. Just get what you want. Don't be a director if you don't know what you want. That's the point of directors. That's why they're assholes. Because it's like, I want this, I want this. If you're just this guy that's standing there and you have this, I'm not sure what I want. Why don't we do a sad take this time and do an angry take next time? And then I'll decide when I have it in editing. Well, then, what is in the scene? That means you don't understand what we're here on the day of to do. You want to do a happy take, a sad take, and an angry take, and then blend it together like a DJ? Like, what is it that the scene is there for? Why would there be one sad take and one angry take? It's usually like a little minute difference. Be a little bit more angry at the end here. And again, it takes 30 seconds or something to do another take? I mean, even checking the gate. It's so easy. You're right there. You can just do as many takes as you want almost.
And another thing is that if you really don't know, if you don't know at the time what you want, just make a choice at the time, and then say if you go through the footage. Okay, so do you want the red curtain or the blue curtain? So if you don't know, just say the red curtain, and then they put the red curtain up. You watched it. Oh, you don't like the red curtain. Let's try the blue one, and then it's also just a way of you have to just act as well as a director. You have to put forward that confidence that you know what you're doing. Otherwise, everyone even questions you on the production.
Okay, here's some interesting super chats. Rock Suzuki in Fallout New Vegas. Totally different. They're having two different conversations, one about the video and about gaming. In Fallout New Vegas, the story and choices are good, but the gameplay is bad. When it comes to shooting, your accuracy is tied to your small gun stat, which is dumb. Your accuracy should be your ability to aim and hit targets. Well, there's several stats and skills based off whether they're energy weapons or or normal weapons, etc. So those are all tied into how they work. Yes, there are some interesting things of how that should work and how that should be changed. That's why we have modding that can modify those parameters. These are not perfect games. That's the beauty of modding for Fallout, because if you want to get into gaming or game dev, doing mods for a game like Fallout New Vegas is great, because you can play with stats. You can see real-world gaming applications that you wouldn't get in, let's say, Unreal. Unreal is focused primarily just on guns and stuff like that, whether it's a projectile weapon or a point of sight weapon. So with New Vegas, you have a lot more control with how to create a gun. So it really depends on what you like about gaming and whether you want to work in Unreal or in their Hero engine. And Lenny the Shark, I don't know what to do for that one, sir. If someone can translate that for me and put that...
I'll throw it to Google Translate.
Is that a thing? I have no idea.
What, Google Translate?
No. I mean, with this language, I have no idea what that is.
Well, I think it's Arabic, as I am there.
Okay.
I know it says you're acting like you've heard about us or something.
Really?
And it's Joel, yeah.
Yeah, it's Arabic. Yeah,
أنت
it's Joel.
تصرف وكأنك سما.
You put it into Translate as well.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I can't speak Arabic. I
Yeah.
know the whatever.
Terrorists win. Oh dear.
وخدي.
Okay.
Racist Glib, never knew you were such a racism.
If someone could,
It's just your opinion, Shiny. It's just your opinion, Shiny.
go ahead
Come on,
and
Shiny.
translate that and put it into the chat. We'd appreciate that, so everyone could read it. All right.
Mentioned how this technology was amazing after editing that Captain Panaka shot we talked about earlier.
I mean, yeah, it's amazing. It doesn't mean you should use it. It doesn't mean you should use the technology if you just do your fucking job right the first time.
Did you know we can split an atom and make a huge explosion?
Yeah, I mean, nuclear bombs are also amazing. I don't. Doesn't mean you should just use it. For why not? It's a specific tool for a specific purpose, and you shouldn't always just fall back on it. It's a fallback. It's not you know what you prioritize. It's not fix it in post.
For granted, you can split one actor from one take and put him, resync him with everybody else. We're doing lots of that.
Look at his face when he says we're doing lots of that. Is that the face of a guy who's excited about his job that he has to do all this horse shit to get a movie made? I mean, come on. This is a guy who's like, man, this is more work than I've ever had to do in my life on this fucking Star Wars.
That's, to me, I mean, it's fantastic you can do that, but it's opening up a whole world of,
pain.
Multiplies the number of decisions that you can make in a cut. Normally you reject whole shots because one thing is wrong, but now you can keep the good things in that shot and just throw away the bad.
And that edit is an extremely small edit, and let's be honest, no one noticed it. I never noticed that Anakin's face changed halfway through the scene, and I never noticed that Captain Panaka was standing up when he used to be sitting down. And you know what, that brings up another thing that I've been wanting to talk about. This kind of thing happens all the time. Movies make small unseen edits all the time. If we just stick to the example of split screen editing, the first time this type of edit was used in film was in 1903, in the short film Life of an American Fireman, way before digital editing was even a thing. Director David Fincher is especially known for using the split screen effect in his films, mostly in places that you would never even realize it, such as a conversation between two characters. He once said in an interview, "I tend to do a lot of invisible split screens. In a two-shot, I'll often use a different performance for each actor. Roughly 1/3 of the timeline contains such shots."
Okay, so one thing that I kind of want to set straight with this, not like just the video as a whole. So his entire argument for why George Lucas is not a bad director is specifically focusing on the edits. And that's this entire video. It's not talking about how he's written his scripts. He's not redrafted. He's not done this, that, or the other. He's not done all the things he's supposed to do. It's specifically defending the thing which hardly anyone fucking notices in the first place. And I'll admit, yeah, it's very unless you're looking for these things, it's difficult to notice. But that's not the problem. The problem is that they shouldn't be necessary. If they're necessary, you've done something wrong. And you know what? It's fine if you do it to such a quality that no one sees it. That's great. Fine. Okay. But you shouldn't need it. And this is a very small part of George Lucas's issues when it comes to when he makes films. Because I'm sure there's lots more we could talk about. Again, as I brought up earlier, the way he directs his actors is abysmal sometimes. A lot of the time. The way he writes his dialogue, abysmal. The way he writes romance, abysmal. And then we can have a whole debate about how he pushes technology as well. So there's so many other things to talk about.
Sorry, I read in the Discord the fuck the average person quote. It's the worst quote you could possibly say in a populist democracy. Fuck the average person. Haha, the experts know. No, but it's funny
sure that's what Ryan Johnson's idea is as well.
No, that's not. That's not what I'm saying. I was just making a
hyperbolic. I know, Clip it, but just say what you're going to say before.
Oh, fuck the average person is what I was saying. No, so I tend to do a lot of invisible split screens. In a 2-shot, I'll often use a different performance for each actor. Yeah, but he sets the frame up that way, which is what I was saying before. David Fincher has that idea. And as for what was being said for the CGI post-production stuff that you were just referencing and what I was joking about, is that the average person is not really going to pick up on structural, mechanical methodology. They're not going to understand the difference if they don't notice an effect. Mm-hmm. Maybe an effect works through a technique in one frame, in one condition, and then the studio decides to use that for other things that don't work in the same movie. And so we can't really say, oh, this one thing doesn't work across the board. It's very specific. So there's a lot of that going on. And if you have a preparation for what you're doing, if you're saying, I'm going to film this so that I can have a split screen thing if I want to do this, it's a good idea. All this technology and the idea that George, like you said earlier, was doing it ahead of time is great. But again, like you said, I think before, it doesn't make it a good movie. It doesn't make it a good decision at the time.
About 2/3 of the timeline has been stabilized or reframed.
We are collecting stuff that then we'll do something with later. Now, the frame is wide open for manipulation, combining different takes in the same frame.
He does a lot of lop-dop too, so that we're able to split screens. And if you've got more than one actor in the frame...
This is completely removed of George Lucas. This has got nothing to do with him.
Do you think George Lucas was planning on to do what David Fincher does?
No.
You can kind of bet on it that 99% of the time I've split the screen, sped up someone for their reaction time, or replaced the take in the background. They're two different things.
In the film Gone Girl, about 80% of the film shots have been stabilized, split screen for performance enhancement, reframed, or otherwise manipulated, all with the intention of you never noticing. In other words, you won't be able to tell all the effects that happen in the movie just by watching it, and that's the point of it. If you see an effect that looks out of place, it takes you out of the story. Good effects are effects that aren't noticed. And as long as technology gets better, it becomes easier to make things look realistic when it's completely edited on a computer. But now let's look at morphing. When Revenge of the Sith was released in 2005, morphing was not all outdated technology. Morphing was used as large parts in Indiana Jones, The Matrix, Star Trek, Terminator, and even Michael Jackson's music video for Black and White. These were all released about 15 years before Revenge of the Sith, so it makes complete sense as to why they would use it if they needed to. Morphing is even used in earlier Star Wars movies, and you just didn't notice it. Watch this scene as Anakin's hand morphs into another hand before touching Padme's arm. Also...
Wow. Don't care.
Are you really trying to defend yourself and George Lucas?
This is what makes George Lucas good. This is what makes George Lucas a good director?
I guess.
Okay.
This is bizarre.
Morphing was used in SNL's Kylo Ren sketch at the beginning. You can clearly see that his body morphs twice, halfway through the sentence.
You get so caught up in restoring the galaxy to its rightful state that you miss what's going on behind the scenes. I'm looking forward to having some real talk
I think I saw it.
Wow, that looked like shit.
with some real folks.
Then with SNL, it's supposed to be a bit more, I don't know, lazy because it's just a skit. It's like something they do that's a lot more lower budget. But we're talking about an actual fucking film here, that, like high budget shit.
I'm gonna be honest, I fucking love that sketch. I think it's so funny.
I mean, I do too, but it's not exactly what I would call high budget in terms of.
No, God no.
I think I remember seeing like really cheap Stormtrooper armor which you can buy as like a kid set or something.
There's two that, and the first one is really well done in comparison to the second. The second one's kind of garbage because they're not even the right Stormtrooper outfits for it.
Mhm.
Is that someone got lazy?
Is shot that the director doesn't like. They fix it in post-production.
It looks like
A
shit,
lot of people
dude.
just don't realize that this is the norm nowadays because they don't notice that it's happening.
All these elements look like shit. They don't look real, and in 10 years, like, this is, okay, hold on. This is what I'm saying. The audience is really savvy. 5 years from now, when the CGI gets way better, all of this is going to look bad. This is the same shit people were saying. They say it to every generation. In 1996, they were saying the exact same thing. Look, we can do this now. We can do this morph cut now. It's 2003. We can do all this crazy shit. Look at this. Look at the elements. Don't look like they have the same lighting on this. That's not really happening, and we all know it.
In almost every single shot.
Yeah, but the thing is, this is intended. This whole thing here was intended from the start to be this scene. That's what they imagined. That's what they were going for. And then comparing that to a complete mess. The only thing in directing is not visual. And the whole thing, the director doesn't do. It is visual effects. That's not the only thing. There are so many more elements which make up directing. So why are you trying to defend George Lucas with a very small aspect of a film and arguably one of the surface level elements which doesn't impact the story's quality in terms of its writing? You should be talking about how he writes and how he, actually shows the actors how to this, that, and the other. And you can include this, but that you include all the elements that make a director, not just one small part that he did well enough that a lot of people didn't notice these takes until you look a lot closer.
Is what has allowed these to portray much bigger stories than they used to. But this technology has had to go through trial runs in order to be perfected. Luckily for us, George Lucas was willing to take the risks with editing and CGI when he made the prequel trilogy. Because of the prequels, there are much easier and better ways to edit things like CGI.
Yes, I'll admit, yeah.
So that makes him a really good technology creator. What it doesn't make him a good director.
Make him a good director, yeah.
My issue with the prequels is not whether the CGI is good, it's whether it's inherently necessary to a lot of the scenes.
Oh, even then, my first problem with the prequels isn't even the CGI, it's the writing.
Yeah, I personally don't care if the creature CGI in that Geonosis scene looks dated. I don't care.
I will give it to George Lucas. Like, I know me and Glib could probably talk all day about, like, if he really should have done it with his flagship series. But at the end of the day, I will commend George Lucas for the way he has impacted the visual effects industry. He's fantastic for that. But again, writing is important.
I actually think a lot of the CGI is pretty good for the prequels. There's certain bits that I think have aged really well, like the ship crashing in Revenge of the Sith at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. I think that's held up really well.
The CGI in Revenge of the Sith is fucking awesome. With the lighting technology, I could go on forever about how amazing the lighting technology is, especially for the time it was being produced. There is visual effects that is being produced these days that doesn't even get anywhere close to the lighting of Revenge of the Sith in its generation and how they put the scenes.
Fake news.
All right, one more super chat. Lenny the Shark. They botched Peter Parker's face surgery. Was that in the latest Spider-Man movie, or was that in some other Marvel flick?
I think that was an older Fox film. Because wouldn't the Fox do it? No, Sony. It was one of the. I think it might be the Amazing Spider-Man that was from or something.
Oh.
I haven't watched those films. I have watched the latest Spider-Mans.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because there's so many, and which version of Spider-Man that he was hurt. He had face surgery. It could have been one of the games, possibly. I don't know. So, be more specific.
Well, I think he's talking about the CGI. He's talking about the CGI and the face replacement or something.
Oh, okay.
Is how can we manage to change the operating procedures in a way that we can completely revolutionize the way we make movies so that this is all doable? Because
admitting that it's not doable, right at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh yeah, let's switch it around. So then, when the Mandalorian comes around, we can do it. And then the Mandalorian will have the exact same problem, which is poor writing.
It's not just that we have to do it for this picture, we have to do it for 2 more pictures. And also, if this picture works, then everybody else will want it done for their picture. And what are we going to do? You know, I mean, nobody can afford to do it at these prices.
So, what's the point of all this? Well, hopefully you've paid attention or at least read the title. The point I'm trying to make is that George Lucas is not a bad director. But does that mean
Please
that I
make
think
more
he's a good
points.
director? No, it doesn't. I think that George Lucas is something else. He's a
He's a visionary.
Someone who is extremely passionate about the story that he has come up with.
You didn't talk about the story at all. You talked about the technology that he came up with.
I would say he's visionary in terms of like he has ideas and he has a vision and he wants to get that vision done. I think that's where it comes into partway directing, where he just wanted to get onto the next thing. He didn't care, fix it later. And I always get the sense that he has this fixed thing that he wants to do and he wants to create. And that's fantastic about George Lucas. That he has this such great imagination and everything, but it's still that's not what doesn't make a good director. You need more things to be a better director.
What was he saying?
Having aliens fight wars up in space was amazingly original at the time, and has continued to be influential to anyone that sees it. Just because the prequels were cheesy and made more for kids doesn't mean that we don't love the story. The main reasons we are mad at the prequels is because of bad acting.
You haven't clarified if it was made more for
CGI
kids.
And how cheesy it all is. Even with all this, though, we love them. You have to admit that the story is amazing. Watching Anakin.
We love the. I mean, I like them. I like the world. I like the characters for the most part. I like the designs.
They gave us a lot of video games and spin-off series. So
Yeah.
I guess.
This video didn't even talk about anything that has to do with what the conclusion is.
Yeah. But I would say that a lot of people really, especially when they came out, fucking hated the prequels.
I still think that they're bad.
I'll agree with you there.
Yeah.
I say bad is like the much. That's the quick and easy answer. The answer about the prequels quality is like a lot more complex because again you can go into so many more elements like the designs and the ideas and the CGI, the actors, this, that, and the other. Because it's not just simply that the prequels are bad. There's a lot of good elements in there, and there's a lot of elements which have reasons why they didn't quite work, and that's where the interesting part of the discussion is for the prequels.
They are sporadically interesting.
But I would say, I don't know, maybe times have changed now with the sequels, but for the most part, it was very much joked about how much people really hated the prequels.
I would actually kind of agree.
So his statement of "we love the prequels," you'd have maybe you do, maybe I do, maybe some of us here do, but you can't make that statement for a lot of people who really don't like them. Oh, I should have been known for not being well liked.
I like moments in them, but the overall product is like a car with multiple rents dug out of the fenders in the frame.
Lenny the Shark was referring to the PS5 remaster. I did see a before and after of the model they used for Peter Parker's face, not the actual surgery. So unless you're referring to that, they just use a different model entirely. Then yes, I know exactly what you're talking about for the PS5 remaster.
into Darth Vader didn't make anyone want to watch Star Wars even less. George Lucas's contribution to film and culture alone is enough to
I
make
can
us
barely
love
hear
him.
this guy.
So let's not hate him just because the prequels weren't what we wanted. I mean, they really weren't that bad.
This isn't about the prequels and what we wanted. Talking about prequel technology. Talking about prequel technology. He didn't mention any of the movies that he directed outside of the prequels. He didn't mention about his directing technique. He didn't mention about anything except for some sort of subconscious defense of attacks that were being made that weren't even a part of the dialogue here. This is a terrible video.
And he just made a TLJ defense of you just don't like them because they're not what you wanted.
Thank you for telling me what I like.
Or what you even want. Because it's got nothing to do with what we wanted. Again, the way we praise the prequels is that this is what we, it's not what we wanted. But yeah, if this was executed well, holy shit, this would be fantastic. But it wasn't executed well. And now forever we're stuck with a smoldering pile of shit. And we're never going to get the truly imaginative, the vision of what George Lucas wanted because of all these fuck-ups.
I must protest. I will never complain about the prequels again after seeing the sequels.
That is true, but it doesn't make them good film. Just because I know it's all relative, but at the same time, I don't think it fixes any problems that the prequels have, and they have a lot of them. Yeah,
I think the prequels end up.
Done? Hello? Done?
Sorry. What? Why does it do that? I would say that the prequels come to par/mediocre in terms of their quality. That's just me.
I would not say the prequels are mediocre, especially because it's such glaring issues.
Well, I say mediocre only because the sequels are just garbage with irredeemable quality, no redeemable qualities, as opposed to the prequels, which do have redeemable qualities.
There's a difference between having redeemable qualities and being meh. Because if something has redeemable qualities, or in terms, I don't know, I'm not actually. It depends on what elements you're looking at specifically. But if you have, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think right now. Because the prequels are hard to quite describe easily on their quality. Again, because you have to go into so many elements, because there is potential there, there's great ideas, there's so many things that just never quite reached what they could have been. I'm going around in circles here. We're nearly finished. Oh no, we are finished.
We are finished. Yes, we only have 4 seconds left, but I think we're done here. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, that was interesting. I thought it was going to be a positive video, like looking at things that were done right or done well, but it seemed to be a conversation about technology. And
yeah, I thought this was going to be more about.
I thought it would be more like
writing. Actual, directing the sets and controlling behind the scenes shit and telling actors how they should be acting. But no, none of that. None of these elements which actually make up a proper good director are actually in there. It's all just, again, no one notices these things in the prequels. No one. I never did. I thought he was fucking bullshitting me when he said that there was a morph edit there, because it's so subtle.
No, I still can't see it, honestly.
I expected this to be something like Rick Worley's "The prequels are better movies than we deserve" video from a while back.
And surely praise about well-executed morph cuts is not necessarily praise directed at George. It's directed at the guy that did that edit.
Yeah, the technology. Yeah, the people doing the technology itself.
George didn't do shit. It was the guy he employed that did the good work.
And that's one of the things where people will say, oh, the people who TLJ has some amazing visual effects. Like, yes, I agree. But those people aren't Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson had a paycheck. And he says, hey, look, I've got some money. I'm going to give you some money. And you make something amazing. And he went to the most talented people in the world to do it.
Okay, guys. I think we've exhausted ourselves in this discussion. It was. It wasn't a bad video. I mean, it's not like one of those erroneously silly ones where they make up stuff. Just the opinions do not really coincide with the video itself for the argument.
I think it's just kind of made me want to talk more to like Glib about visual effects and stuff.
Or
well,
honestly,
what have you done?
Honestly, I'd really just like to have a discussion with Rick Worley as opposed to this, because he actually knows more about like George Lucas's like filmmaking process.
I doubt Rick would want to talk to me ever again.
Who?
Rick Worley.
Who?
The guy on the prequel debate with Glib.
Oh, all right.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in. I don't know what's happening in the next few hours. If you guys want to have a game night, we can do that. Have an hour and a bit of Among Us. I don't know if...
Maybe we should have like an actual Smudcast game night sometime.
An actual Smudcast? Everyone on the Smudcast just plays a...
Yeah, just plays a game.
Which game, though?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
I know we've played already 2 rounds or 2 nights worth of Among Us, but there's other games that were on the list. I think Fall Guys was, the runner-up. I have to go back on that poll, but we could get other titles. We could get other people. So really up to you guys if you want to have a game night right now after 10, 20 minutes. But we will be discussing next week for movie night. We got to stick to a date and go with it. Same with what we're going to give voice to play, whether it's going to be Kingdom Hearts or it's going to be that Xbox Willy Wonka
game. The Chocolate Factory.
That game the movie itself is a nightmare of
Yeah, the game looks weird as well. I always remember as like a child, I loved it, but it's going to be one of those. I've got a feeling it's going to be one of those games that you loved it as a child. But like when you come back to it, it's absolute just hot shit.
I do want to watch Smud's reaction to the movie. I think it would be hilarious.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you have any more suggestions, please put them in the suggestions channel on the Smudcast. We have a giant list, keeps growing, but we're slowly chopping away at it, and we do appreciate all your ideas. So thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys real soon.